Hey, Jason here from Nerds RPG Variety Cast. I just wanted to congratulate you on 100 episodes. Great job. I hope you have many hundreds more episodes. Really enjoy the show, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Hi, I'm Joe, and this is the Dekahedron RPG Podcast.
Hi everyone, this is Joe, your binary bard and host of this 100th episode of the Dekahedron RPG Cast. I am super stoked. I can't even tell you how much I'm excited about hitting episode 100. You know, when I started this thing, I was like, no, I might get 100. So my mind is blown. And to make it even more special, I've got two incredible guests joining me today. The first is the enduring monk of our party, if you will, the one who embarked on this journey with me on episode 1 and has returned to mark this unforgettable 100th episode. It's none other than the incomparable James. Hi, James.
Hello, Joe.
And our other esteemed guest is the magical powerhouse of the party, the illustrious host of the Dungeon Masters Handbook podcast. And I believe, if I heard right, he is the genius co-creator of the one-page dungeon contest. We'll find out in a second. The legendary ChgoWiz himself, Michael, a.k.a. Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Joe and James.
And are you indeed the co-creator of the one-page dungeon?
I am. That was started late 2008, early 2009 in the old OSR forums by David Bowman. I miss David. And he posted one day, hey, I wish I could make a template for this. And my geek brain took over. I made a template for him out of Microsoft Word, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. I've gotten much enjoyment out of the one-page dungeon contests. I tend to like the early ones when it was more about the dungeons and less about how artsy it looked. But, you know, we've already done a whole episode about how Joe hates art. So so I already said that you were the host of the Dungeon Masters Handbook podcast. Of course, I'll have a link to that in the show notes. But I also, your blog has recently turned itself into a Sleazak or something?
Yep, from Substack. It allows me to combine hosting my podcast and my blog in one place. And I'm kind of moving away from Blogger, which I've been on for almost 13 years now, but it was time to move. It was a good move. Things are working out really well there.
Today's episode is about Munchkins, and of course, we are wrapping up our contest about whether or not James is a Munchkin. I know the results because I already listened to everything, but James is on pins and needles. He's been bugging me for the whole month, actually. How many entries do we have? I hear them. What are they saying? So I know what it is, and we're just going to torture James a little bit more. So let's talk about Munchkins in general. It's a term that a lot of people throw out. I first encountered it in this famous document that's written by Steve Perring, who is a gaming legend in the universe anyway. But it's called Real Men, Real Role Players, Loonies, and Munchkins. I'll include a link for that in the show notes too. That was my first encounter with this term, although the term predates that. It was a popular term in the convention scene and everything. I never did a lot of conventions. It's a derogative term used to describe the style of play that was initially, I guess, associated with young kids that were starting. Yeah, so there it is. I sent a link to the document to both James and Mike last night. Have you ever seen the document before, Mike?
Yeah, I had, long time ago. I want to say when back on BBS's, I believe, or maybe Usenet, but I've definitely seen various versions of this. It's a cute document. It gave me a good laugh, and some of the things were too uncomfortably close to home, but hey. But no, I first heard the comparison actually when I first started getting online, because much like you, I didn't hang out in conventions. I didn't even really have the Dragon or Dungeon subscriptions. we just played D&D and did other things. And those magazines and stuff were neat to look at in the bookstores, but I usually didn't have the money to pay for them to bring them home. So, they stayed in the bookstore. But yeah, it was derogatory, and it was meant the way I took it for the people that concentrated on making their character as powerful as possible to the detriment of everyone else at the table.
The document's just definitely funny. I tend to agree a lot of it. It's cute. I tend to take that more of derogatory in the idea that those were some of the players that you didn't want to play with because they were always trying to take the whole game over and making it not fun.
So before we jump into the Munchkins hardcore, when you read that document, which bucket would you put yourself in, Mike?
I'd put myself in all four of them at one point in time in my life.
And now?
I'm going to say I'm more of a role player, and I would put myself in either the first or second category more nowadays.
All right. Mike?
I'm going to be a combination of real role player and loonies. And I'm going to give you a perfect example because I was flipping through the document. Favorite world settings: real men play in Sanctuary. Real role players play in Glorantha. Loonies play in Southern California. Munchkins play wherever has the most magic items. And I'm like, now I want to play in Glorantha in Southern California because to me that just sounds funny. And then there's the next one. Real role players use stun guns. Loonies use thermonuclear hand grenades. I'm sold. I'm a real loony role player.
Yeah, actually, you kind of stole my answer. I straddled the fence between real role player and loony, which is why I tend to GM more than I play. All right, so let's talk about Munchkins. So I thought it would be fun to discuss what are the primary characteristics of a Munchkin. What makes a Munchkin a Munchkin? Walking away from that document when I first read it back in the 90s or whatever. Yeah, it was probably the 90s because I think I came across that on Usenet. The line that just keeps repeating, like favorite weapon, favorite armor, favorite range weapon, over and over from the Munchkin, just keep saying whatever gives you the most pluses, whatever gives you the most pluses, whatever gives you the most pluses. And I think that encapsulates what a Munchkin is. It's that focus on power and winning. They think that the game is something that is meant to be won. Thoughts?
No, I agree with you. And it's funny. I don't attract Munchkins to my game. We all have the player who really wants to get the coolest stuff, but I've never really had a Munchkin long term in any campaign that I've run. Where I have run into Munchkins has been conventions. When I go to events and I'll sit down, table with 4 to 6 other strangers, and a lot of times, especially in like AD&D games or games where you have those kinds of things where you can grab objects of power, there's someone there that wants to do that, and it's all about them, and it's all about what can they get, and they don't care who they're stepping on to get it.
I'm going to agree a lot with that last comment with definitely the conventions. I think Pathfinder and whatever the Dungeons and Dragons is called now, they try to cut it back by having formatted dungeons where you could only get things and you have to basically pay for it. But there are still games at conventions where the people just want to be the most powerful at the table, no matter what it is. And role-playing games isn't about winning. It's about enjoying it. I think that's why the home games are more fun, and I think less Munchkin-like, because the Munchkins that do play at home games tend to get weeded out very quickly.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. I've only had two instances where I've had to ask someone to leave my game, and it wasn't because of Munchkinism, it was because of other bad behaviors. I'm not going to call this person's name out. We'll call him Chuck. I do have a Chuck in my game who loves to try to push the boundaries, but it's not done in a malicious way. And he always gets that "oh shucks" reaction. When I'm like, "Come on, Chuck, we're not doing that. No, you cannot carry 6 times your encumbrance value and move at 1 inch. 3 inches is it, and that's it." I get it, and that's okay because he's not doing it to be malicious. It's just how he thinks, and so he knows how far he can push me, and I know where to draw the line and still have the game be enjoyable.
Well, that reminds me of when me and Joseph first started, and I kept trying to get a Drow Ranger to play. I won't say any character that I was trying to resemble, but I'm sure Joe knows who it was.
No, because that character didn't exist back then. When we first started it. So first of all, in absolute disclosure, I will 100% say that those early games when we were in junior high, we were 100% Munchkins.
Yes.
Yeah, those were Munchkin games, and we were Munchkins. We were Munchkin players. We were Munchkin DMs, which is something that nobody ever talks about. As if a DM cannot be a Munchkin, and they absolutely positively can. And again, it's that focus on winning, right? They want to win the game, and they want to win the game by screwing over the players in very Munchkin-y ways. And I think no one talks about that is because it's a self-correcting problem, because people just stop playing with those DMs and they cease to become DMs, or they cease to become Munchkins, one of the two. So the next point is another strong characteristics of Munchkins, again, associated with that it's a game to be won, is min-maxing.
So I go back and forth on this because one of the things that role-playing games give us are these tools to create characters. And I go back and forth on this. Some games are suited to allowing players to play the meta game, if you will. I guess that's the way to say it. That they can play with, and we see it especially in video games. Making the perfect build, if you will. And I guess for me, I go back and forth because there is an aspect of that some people really enjoy. They really enjoy doing that, figuring out those, what's the avenue to making my character strong. But if they're not doing it in a detrimental way to the game, that's their fun. Who am I as a GM to say, no, you can't do that if it's not harming my game? So I'm okay with that. But me as a player, I love it when I get a 3. If I'm rolling the 3d6, I love it when I have a really flawed, imperfect character, because then it gives me a hook to play with, and I just roll with it. One of the most fun events I ever played in was a game ran by, he's kind of a controversial figure now, Jeff Rientz of Jeff's Game Blog. I ran in a convention game with him, and I had the dumbest, weakest character possible. And I tried to find every way to die. Any trap, I was the first one there trying to get into it and all that. That gave me an avenue to do that thing. So I was kind of, I guess, minning as hard as possible. But I don't, that's how I like to play. I don't like to, come up with the best combination that's going to make me the most powerful. Maybe I'm different than other folks, but that's how I think of it.
James, min-maxing.
I'm sure I've done it in the past, but I try not to. As we had our original discussion, I try to have an average character. I will not agree with Michael. I don't like when I have extremely low score in an area or two. I don't mind minimum numbers, but I try to have my character average across the board at least. But I'm going to throw a question out to you, Michael. When you roll your characters, do you do 3d6 or 4d6 and drop one?
3d6 down the line, baby.
Method one for the win.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Now, I do agree that, every game has that option that if you don't like the character, toss them aside and do something else. And I mentioned Chuck earlier. Chuck wanted to be a paladin. I said, you have to record your results. And sure enough, that guy brought me 6 sheets of paper with sequences of 6 rolls. And I mean, who was going to lie and make up 6 sheets of paper? No, he sat down and he rolled all of those rolls to get his paladin. And I respected that. He followed my rules.
In the games with James, as I said before, I got introduced to gaming through James indirectly. James got the game, passed it on to a mutual friend named Don. Don passed it on to me, and that's how I met James. Anyway, and that was the Holmes edition, when the Holmes edition was the newest thing out.
I love me Holmes.
So we are old. So yeah, one day I sat down in my home in Rhode Island, young preteen me or teen me, whatever year that would have been. I would have to do the math. I'm not going to do it. Teen me. Anyway, and I sat down and I had a packet of that three ring binder note paper, and I rolled up 100 characters, and I took the best one, and I named that one Snogging, which is my online handle everywhere to this day. And
nice.
But I kept all 100, and I had them in the binder, and they were his troop, and I gave each one class and everything. But yes, that's I will definitely admit to being a Munchkin back then.
That's awesome.
As for min-maxing, 2 points. One, to bounce off what Mike was saying about liking characters with low scores. I like that. I think they make for more interesting characters. When I first started playing GURPS, before it was GURPS, when it was man-to-man with some supplements from Steve Jackson Games that he would mail out, Role Player, I think it was called. When they first started introducing disadvantages, that's what made me fall in love with the game. It's like, and I referenced Superman back in the original Munchkin episode, and I'm going to do it again. But like Superman, I don't like as a character. He is too perfect. John Legend has a song where he talks about, your perfect imperfections. It's those imperfections that make a person. And all the pulp heroes have that problem, right? All the pulp heroes are perfect. They're the smartest, they're the strongest, they're the quickest. They need to be, and it's in that later era in fiction and in comics. So as we go from the Golden Age to the Silver Age, where we start, Stan Lee starts bringing us, Spider-Man and Iron Man, and all these characters that have imperfections that make them interesting. Spider-Man is a high school student. He has to get home before curfew or he'll get in trouble from Aunt May, Iron Man is a struggling alcoholic. These weaknesses is what makes the character interesting, and I love doing that. Okay, so that's enough on that one.
Well, to follow on that, that's why I liked the Man of Steel movie, because it showed Superman struggling with his perfections, with his morals. When he had spoilers, he struggles with that, and it affects him deeply. And if I had to take the flip side, if I had a maxed player or a character like that, then that would probably be the avenue that I would follow, or would hope that there were avenues I could follow. And to follow along something else, I think the GM of the game sets the tone for allowing people to do what they want. I take a very hands-off approach with the players and how they want to jury rig their characters. Not because I don't care, but I find that I do that less. I get involved less than other GMs, maybe, because I want the players to feel like this is theirs. They can do with it whatever they want. If they want to max it out, that's their choice. If they want to have an imperfect character and investigate that, that's their choice. That's why they're at my table, is to do their thing in my world. And so maybe that's why I don't have a problem with Munchkinism, because I don't discourage it or encourage it. And I think people kind of naturally fall into that, you were calling that average area of where they want to be. I don't know.
So the other thing I was going to say about min-maxing is I don't necessarily view it as a bad thing. And as a GM, like I said before, for the longest time, GURPS was my system of choice. After that, I moved on to Fudge and other things. But for a long time, starting in the mid-'80s to sometime near the late 90s, I guess, GURPS was my system. And I used it a lot, and I was really good with it. And so if a player handed me a character, I could pretty much tell by looking at it, it looks like if we raise your intelligence by a point, that won't cost you 10 points, but you're going to save like 15 points because we're going to be able to reduce the number of points we're spending in these skills. So you'll be able to like boost one or add something new or, flesh out your character a little differently. And that's definitely a form of min-maxing, but I don't view that as Munchkinism. And I think what we're going at here, and with our previous point about making the most powerful character, is that Munchkinism isn't power gaming, or min-max power gaming isn't necessarily Munchkinism, and min-maxing isn't Munchkinism, and vice versa. But Munchkinism takes both of those philosophies and more, and it's something that both of you hinted at before. It's to the detriment of the other players of the whole experience for the table. And this is why during the original episode where James said something about playing the cleric because nobody else would, and it's for the best of the party, that I said that was probably his best defense, because a Munchkinism doesn't care about the rest of the party other than, can they be his meat shields and help take down the enemy? So, yes, I think Munchkinism focuses on the self. Thoughts?
Focus on the self to the detriment of the group. Yes. And we see it with the behaviors of online games where, the griefers, the base campers and that kind of thing, the folks that'll run around and just, they want to see the world burn, and they can do it. They can indulge in that because there's no repercussions. Whereas at a table and face to face, you act that way enough, you're going to get asked to leave the table. But you still see those kind of and that might be why it happens at conventions a lot, because people that want to indulge in that kind of behavior, it's convention, it's a one-shot event, if this is the kind of person that already doesn't care about conduct at the table, or being basically obeying the social contract and being a good citizen, convention's a perfect place to do that.
Now that you make me think of it, definitely, I've been to quite a few conventions, and I do see the picture you're given. There is quite a few people at the convention tables that are thinking exactly what you said. It's a one-shot thing. If I get these people upset with me, they're gone tomorrow. I ain't going to have to deal with them again, but it's just a bad situation in a game. Now, I've had games where it almost came to blows. That's how bad the players were. That's never a fun situation either.
And I should point out that is the minimal exception. I would say the 1% of the games I've played at conventions had someone like that. The vast majority of people get together, we don't know each other, but we sit down, we have a good time, and everybody leaves happy. That is the vast majority of my experiences. But they say, the bad experiences stick with you more. So,
like you said, maybe 1 out of 100 games is a bad situation, and let's say 50% are great and the rest are mediocre.
Fair.
So the last point I had some more points on my list, but as I look at them, they're subsumed in other points that we've already talked about. So the last thing I will say that is a characteristic of Munchkins is they view the GM-player relationship as adversarial. And again, this goes back to my saying that, it could be the GM viewing the players as adversarial just as much as the player viewing the GM as the adversary. But I think that is a trait of Munchkins.
I agree. Anytime you introduce adversarial, then you make it into a win-lose situation, which seems to promote. And good point on pointing out that GMs can be Munchkins as well. Anytime you're getting an adversaries, then you're concentrating on I'm winning, and that means someone else is losing, and that's kind of detriment the table. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
There is no winning or losing. It's enjoy the game, create a environment where you want to continue playing and find out what's the next step, what's the next clue taking me to.
All right, so those are the core characteristics of what I consider for Munchkinism. Do either of you feel I left anything out?
No, although it's been interesting to see Munchkinism kind of take a different form in online gaming. I don't know if folks see it more with playing with the online role-playing games like they do with the online video games. Like I said, at my table, I don't see it as much. What's your experience with that?
Me and Joseph were playing on Roll20 for a while, but we kept losing players, and I just want to say a lot of them were there just to beat on everything and anything. They were not any really role players, and there's one or two, like the idea you brought up, where they just wanted to tear the world down. They didn't want to create or do anything more than survive.
But I would also say that a lot of my Roll20 games were open world, so you're free to come in for 1 week and then not come back. It was so, yeah, whatever. All right, so it sounds like we have pretty much defined what a Munchkin is. The only other point I had written down that I wanted to raise before we go into the James part is, are Munchkins real? I mean, are there really Munchkins out there? Or is Munchkin just a term that I'm using air quotes there, we use to describe them that we don't like? You know what I'm saying? Is it a real thing, or is it just a label we put on people that play differently than we do?
I'm going to be very broad on this and throw something out there. There is Munchkins in everything. Gaming, business, sports, you name it, there's got to be one.
Yes, I agree. I think it is a thing. It's an interesting point, Joe, that to use a label to define something that we just don't like about a player and call them a Munchkin. I'm sure that Munchkin gets used as a pejorative like that, but I've definitely seen enough in both online gaming and in the tabletop gaming to say, yes, there are Munchkins out there. Just not my table.
All right, so that brings us to the second part of the show, the one where we are going to answer that age-old question, is James a Munchkin? So the first thing I have was a new commenter who did not send in voice feedback. He just sent in an email. I think it's a he. It might be a she for all I know. Goes by the name of Joe Cool, Jocool. And it's not me, because I would be Joe, cool. And that would make me think of...
yeah, sure.
So it would make me think of Snoopy. But no, it's like I said, I have no idea who this is. They've never commented before. But they say, James is a Munchkin. And then they say, sorry, James. Thanks.
Yes, Joseph, I know it's you. But go on. Let's hear the next one.
Nope. So that one wasn't me. But it is a new commenter, and they actually sent another comment that will be probably played next episode when I get caught up on my voicemails. But okay, so we're going to assume that this works, and you should be able to hear.
Hey, Joe. Daniel from Bend just keep calling in. I don't think I called in on whether or not I thought that James was a Munchkin. So, based on the evidence presented in the case, I'm actually going to say no. But now I will also say that, to me, my only real association with that term is the actual game Munchkin. And in that game, you are not just somebody who wants to build up all your gear and be the most powerful. You're also somebody who kind of screws over the other players. So it didn't seem like there was evidence that he did that, and I would put that into being a Munchkin in my thought process. So it seems like James is a team player, even if he does want to be the captain of the team, or at least the star quarterback, right? But no, I'm going to say no. I'm curious. I mean, I try to imagine somebody who is like that, and I feel like I imagine them not being invited back for a second session, the Munchkin that I described earlier. So I don't know. Maybe that's not the proper definition, but I guess that's what I'm going to say. So my vote is no Munchkin for James. And happy 100, right, it's going to be the 100th episode, I think you said. That's fantastic. And I'll talk to you later.
Thank you for that, sir. So it's 1-1 right now.
So it is tied up 1-1. We do have 2 others to go. I will say that I 100% agree with Daniel's point that you, Sir James, I played with you at my table many a time, and for at least the last 10 years, if not longer, you are always focused on the group and never try to... Actually, you are much more likely to sacrifice yourself for the group. So I will say that's definitely a point in your favor. Our next one is Jason, who will start right about now.
Matey, this is the Dread Pirate Jason, and I'm calling you because of your episode 92 1-year anniversary. You said it was coming out on September 20th, but you published it on September 19th, which, as we all know, is Talk Like a Pirate Day. Arr! If ye landlubbers are going to hijack Talk Like a Pirate Day, I'm going to make you walk the plank. Shiver me timbers. Also, 9 is the minimum dexterity required to be a thief in a D&D. That is definitely, possibly, a mark against the Pirate James. You can play a thief with a 9 dexterity, James. But with preponderance of evidence that ye have presented at the trial, I would say that James is not a Munchkin. He's a team player. He just doesn't like to play characters that are likely to fail mechanical tests in the game. I don't think that's a Munchkin. I don't know what you call it, but not a Munchkin. So I will cast me fate and me vote with James not being a Munchkin. And if ye need a prize, Steve Jackson Games sells Munchkin-themed dice bags. One of them would be a good prize for the lucky winner. I'm the Dread Pirate Jason, signing off on September 19th. Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Sir, thank you again.
I'm going to nominate that if it's found that James is not a Munchkin, that we define a new label, a Chuck, to resemble the anonymous player who I don't want to call out by their real name, who I'm saying they're called Chuck.
And that's the type of player that just doesn't like to use mechanical tests.
But they will exhibit certain characteristics of min-maxing and wanting to be the best character, but not to the detriment of the table. That's a Chuck. A Chuck.
By the way, there was a TV show called Chuck. I really liked it. It was about a guy who accidentally downloaded the entire internet into his brain, and so it was kind of a superhero movie.
I have to look that up. That sounds funny.
Oh, it was funny. Chuck 2.2, was it a 2.0?
Probably 2.0. Yeah, it was, I don't know, it came out somewhere before 2016, because when I was deployed, I was able to watch the whole thing in my barracks room late at night.
It was 5 seasons long, according to Wikipedia. Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty good show. I really liked it. It's a kind of a low-level superhero, if you will, where his only superpower is that he has the entire internet downloaded into his brain. All right. And so our last feedback comes to us from Evil Jeff, who has the ability. So we're setting at 1 to 2. Evil Jeff has the ability to make a tie. And if he makes the tie, that means I get to break it.
You're going to have to do something about that laugh, man.
Here's Evil Jeff.
Go, Evil Jeff. All right, so here's our entry into Is James a Munchkin? And I will say, as the prosecutor, that you did not do a very good job prosecuting. You did not try to help define or speak out what the definition was of a Munchkin, leading it up to the jury's interpretation, though I guess there really is no true definition. And I really did go through that looking to see if there was some sort of definition somewhere, because it's a subjective thing. In the end, I found a nice little graph that I thought fit my mentality of what I thought of. And on one end of it, it was the power gamer. And then at the other end, it was Munchkin. And in between was a min-maxer. And reading through that, I said, you know what, that's what I think really we have there. Power gamer are those that try to create, characters that really are making the most of things. The min-maxers are the ones that try to tweak every little bit out. Stats are important to them. But to me, a Munchkin is somebody who tries to make spurious claims based upon some tiny little thing that their character may or may not have. That to me is where the Munchkin is. And, well, from what you presented, I don't think that's quite enough. And while you presented evidence that James is a Munchkin and everything, I would argue some of those were power gamer stuff. Some of them were min-maxers. But your question was, is James a Munchkin? And I would have to look at it and say, well, are we defining it now or way back then? Because now I don't feel that he is a Munchkin. Maybe in the past he could have been. Maybe he has exhibited Munchkin behavior. I think that James is probably riding a very thin line between min-maxing and Munchkin. It may be easy to teeter one way or the other, but I do not feel that he is a Munchkin, but he might be awfully close. So there you have it. I will say that I do enjoy the idea of the dice bag, Munchkin dice bag, which is cool. I'm also cool with swag, labeled with Dekahedron on it. Got no qualms for me. Love what you've been putting out there. I'm glad this is your 100th episode. Keep it up.
Thank you, Evil Jeff. Thank you for proving Joseph wrong.
I would like to point out that one vote came from someone who calls himself Evil Jeff. So I'm not sure we can trust him. And the other one came from someone who sounded like a pirate, and pirates are criminals, and we can't trust those. So
you're losing, Joseph. All of them were of their own volition. You didn't get them pushed over that line. But Evil Jeff says I was close.
I would also like to point out that when we were recently playing Minecraft on a server together, you kept begging me to turn off the thing that makes you lose stuff when you die, because you wanted to die with no consequences at all. In fact, you wanted to use death as an easy way to get back home.
Not quite. I just hated the idea of I have a map on me and I keep losing it every time I died. If I didn't lose the map, I probably would not have cared as much.
Yeah, that is really annoying.
See, whereas me, when I play Minecraft on my own, I play on hardcore. So when you die, that game is over. You cannot go back into that world. It's just done. But
Yeah,
nope, the jury has spoken. James, you are not a Munchkin.
Yay. Well, the jury said he wasn't. He's a Chuck.
So let's wrap this episode up. We have 4 people in alphabetical orders. They were Daniel, Evil Jeff, Jason, and Joe Cool. So Daniel's number 1, Evil Jeff is number 2. Yeah, I alphabetize Evil Jeff under Evil rather than Jeff because I don't know, that's what he calls himself. Jason is number 3 and Joe Cool is number 4. If you could each pick up a D4 and give it a roll.
Dose.
A 4, Joe Cool.
Nope. So we keep doing this until they match.
Oh, okay.
So re-roll, please.
1.
1.
Hey.
1. So the winner is Daniel.
Woot woot.
Woohoo! So there you go. Daniel, you are the winner of the Munchkin Dice Bag. I will be getting with you, sir, to get your address. I thought this was actually a pretty cool discussion. I appreciate you both for joining me. So thank you, James.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you. And congratulations on 100. That is awesome.
Yeah, thanks. I expected it would take 2 years, but I went crazy this year and was doing 2 episodes a week. One normal, one feedback. Won't be doing that this year going forward. Going to be starting a new podcast with my wife, so excited about that.
Cool.
But yeah, thanks for that. Congratulations. I did come across. I had my Zoom recorder out, and I came across the original recording I did for an episode 1, and I did it like 6 years ago. I'll have to look at the date. But wow. And so it's kind of short. It's 5 minutes, I think. And I might just put it after the music, just throw that information there for a good chuckle for everyone to see what the original concept for the podcast was. But anyway, yeah, thank you again both for joining me. And audience, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate all the support you've given me for 100 episodes. Again, very stoked. Let us know what you think about Munchkins. Is there anything that we missed? Did we sort of nail on the head? Are Munchkins real? Feedback at Dekahedron.com. Use the voice feedback line. It's in the outro music that you're about to hear. It's in the show notes. Sayhi.chat/Dekahedron if you're overseas or something, which, by the way, we have a new feedbacker. We'll be playing that next one from next week is in Northern Ireland. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, yeah, I think that's everything. So until next week, happy gaming, happy life. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dekahedron RPG Cast. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voice message by calling 562-774-2278. That's 562-RPG-CAST. Or by visiting sayhi.chat/Dekahedron. You can also email us at feedback@dekahedron.com. Links are in the show notes. For more information, visit dekahedron.com. Remember that Dekahedron is spelled with a K. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. Logos by Design Cat. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep those dice rolling.
Hi, it's February 18th, 2019, and I am the Vagabond Game Master. Though, my friends just call me Joe, and you can too. This is episode 1, and episode 1 is about a Gonzo alignment system. But before I talk about that, I just want to talk about how weird it is to be recording episode 1. Episode 1, that means I have no listeners. I'm recording this for absolutely nobody. And that's just weird. I have no idea of how to build an audience. So it's kind of like I'm talking to myself. And they always say that's a sign of insanity. So maybe I'm crazy. And maybe this alignment system will make you think that way too. All right, so here's the alignment system. Enough of that. The alignment system, it's for OD&D. The original one-axis, chaotic, neutral, lawful alignment system. No good, evil access just that first one. And my thought is, bear with me, I told you it's Gonzo. What if there's a planet, and on this planet they have this rock? I don't know, maybe they call it Morite. Doesn't make a difference. They have this rock. It's all over the place. They love this rock. Actually, they don't care about this rock. It's just this rock. Who cares? It's a rock. They don't use it for anything. It's junk. They can't build with it. It gets in the way. They just toss it aside. However, it turns out that an advanced star-faring civilization calls this rock dilithium, or whatever works in your world. But what if this rock is like dilithium crystals or whatever? And at some point in the distant past of this world, James Kirk landed on one part of the planet, and Commander Corps of the Klingon Empire landed on the other part, and they were both trying to get these rocks. Maybe their ships were damaged in space, and they needed some dilithium crystals to get back up their ships operational so they could continue the battle or get the heck out of there or whatever. And so they start acquiring these rocks, and they're using the local civilization because they don't have enough manpower to do it themselves. And as they're doing it, they're infusing these groups with their own morality. And so you have one group, we'll call them the lawful group, that's actually modeled on the Federation concepts of morality, of right and wrong, of everybody deserves equality, and we judge people on their actions and not other things, and people need to be given the right to succeed. And on the other side, we have the groups that were met by the Klingons, right? And the Klingons teach them the Klingon way, the way of the warrior, the way of the hunt. Might is right. The weak are there to serve the strong. You make what your fate of what you make of it, the importance of honor. And of course, that would be the chaotic side. And so you have these two sides coming into conflict by these people who just needed these rocks, and they picked up their rocks, and they both flew away, and none of them ever came back to this planet. That is my idea. And it's kind of mixing science fiction with fantasy, and a lot of people don't like that. But I think it has a certain place in D&D. As we know, D&D was created by Dave Arneson and with his Blackmore campaign, right? And wasn't Blackmore the site of a spacecraft crash? Wasn't that what was underneath Castle Blackmore? Wasn't there a famous alien NPC that was known to inhabit the region? So it seems like using aliens is at the true beginning of D&D, and it's gonzo, but it's in the spirit of the game. So that's my thought. I'm thinking about incorporating it at my next campaign. Not sure if I would tell the players. I'm not sure if I would let them discover it over time, or if it was just this thing. And yeah, maybe chaos is a corruption of the pronunciation of Kalis, which is the Klingon prophet, for lack of a better term. Anyway, it's my idea. I hope you liked it. That's it for this episode. Hey, send feedback. I need a feedback email. I'm going to attach that somewhere. Or if you use the Anchor app, you can send me feedback right through Anchor. Feedback. Oh, please send feedback. Thank you for listening. I'll be back with episode 2 at some point. Thank you. Bye.